Today we're talking about the best MLS forwards that you can get no matter what your SoRare budget is. Previous videos we covered midfielders and defenders. Check my channel if you missed those. If you did see those, welcome back. Alright, so what I did was I took 47 MLS forwards. I captured over 10,000 data points on those. I used those to create 4 pillars of data that we turned into metrics. So a D&P percent, how often is the player not even playing? Podium percent, how many times is the player going to put up a week winning score? Consistency, how often is the player going to put up a score that at least leaves you in the running or can help you hit a threshold to get your .02 ETH payout? And market value. This is a little bit of the secret sauce. Pulled in data from a few different places that I don't think a lot of SoRare users are using right now to help me create a long-term plus short-term plus market cost to formulate this fourth score. And all that helped me determine which players are going to be the best value in any price point. So we have our low budget guys in the $0 to $200 range, our mid budget in the $200 to $500, our high in the $500 to $1,000, and then our premier players that are going to be $1,000 plus. One disclaimer, so everything was captured on March 5th. It took me a while to pull all this data together and then get these videos published. So keep that in mind as you're looking at this. Obviously, market prices change and the value of Ethereum has changed as well. Let's get into it though. So our best premier forwards. If you have the budget, Diego Rossi is our #1 player according to the value. A lot of this, he isn't necessarily putting up the best scores at the moment, but with his age at just 21 years old and his trajectory already being one of the top guys, consistent, 100%, podium 61%. So he's putting up amazing scores, and he's only, 22 years old. So he's going to be doing this for a long time, and you're going to, probably get a very high return on your investment if you are able to afford him. #2, Gyasi Zardes. Very athletic forward, plays for the Columbus Crew, the defending MLS champs. So very good team, projected to score a lot of goals again this year. So a very, very good investment there as well. #3, Carlos Vela. Was injured last year. If he's healthy, he's the front runner for the MLS MVP. He is probably technically on a different level than almost anybody else in the MLS. Just an absolutely outstanding player. Coming back from injury, I mean, maybe he's a little bit of a value right now, but it's hard to say that because he's still one of the most expensive players in the MLS, if not the most expensive. And last but not least, our great East Space bonus player. So not necessarily driven off of metrics, but a little bit of my personal opinion mixed in with that as well. Joseph Martinez. So plays for Atlanta, was injured last year. Got injured in the first week of the season. So, he's rehabbing from that. All reports are indicating that he's rehabbed well and should be ready to go for this season. And if he is, this guy is a beast. He's set an MLS record of 15 straight games with at least 1 goal, which is just crazy to comprehend. So if he comes back fully healthy and regains his form, this guy, he could push Vela for the MVP. Anyways, I think, can't go wrong here. All these guys are very talented, and if you've got the budget, are great pickups. Moving on to look at our high budget forwards, $500 to $1,000 range. First option is Raul Ruidiaz. A great player here, 100% consistency, so he never has a bad game, and 65% of the time he is hitting a score that will help you potentially win a reward of a player card with a podium percent of 65%. Plays for the Sounders up in Seattle, and has been a very consistent force for them since he joined, and is a great option. Moving on to our second choice here, Robert Beric. Another great player. He's played in some of the top leagues around the world before coming to the MLS. Plays for Chicago, which, is not historically the most dominant team in the MLS. If they're able to take a step forward, I think that results in him scoring more goals. But either way, he's, a very consistent player, very, very high-class player. So when he has opportunities, he usually will capitalize on them. And a great option here is our second choice in the high budget. Coming in third is Casper P, because I am not even going to try and pronounce that last name. I think, there's probably some better options here if you're going to be spending this money. Not my personal favorite. This is just kind of what the data said. But 26 years old, so he still has a lot of good soccer ahead of him. Very consistent, scores some goals. So again, a good option. Maybe not my personal favorite, but let's get into that. So great East Space bonus player. Outside of our top 3, the player that I would recommend is Gustavo Bo. plays for the New England Revolution. Is a very, very, very good goal scorer. He had a really nice run in the MLS playoffs last year. And, I think just, he's a goal scorer. That's the best way to put it. He had almost 50% podium percent. Is a little bit cheaper than some of these other guys. And I think is a person that I would like to add to my personal gallery as well. Moving on. And one thing before I move on. So this high budget, I think this is probably the best place to be in if you are trying to kind of get your collection started, have a little bit of money to spend. Forward is a difficult spot because you have a lot of guys with high variability. So they won't score a goal and they won't do much else. So they'll have a lot of games where they put up 30 to 40 points, which doesn't really help you a whole lot. But this tier of guys seems to be more consistent in that they're scoring goals, they're involved in the offense more consistently, so they're getting some more of their all-around score, not just their decisive score when they only score goals. So this, I think, is the tier where if you really want to compete and try and win weekly rewards, I think these are some great guys to focus on. And I kind of tee that up to get into our mid-budget forwards. Our first guy here, Nani, I think he has the same quality as some of those high-budget forwards. I think the reason he's probably down a price tier is because of his age at 33. So that could be a really good option, and definitely one that I'm looking into as well when I start thinking about building out my MLS rosters. He had a podium percent of almost 46%, so very similar to some of the guys up here in the high budget category. A little bit less consistent, and he is a little bit older. So at some point does that usage go down a little bit? But I think he's a great player if you are not quite in that high budget price range, but you need a player to help you win some rewards. Some guys I'm a little bit less excited about, but I think still have some great potential. Adam Buksa. So this one I think is more maybe investing for the future. Very young at 24, and has a lot of good soccer ahead of him. So definitely a good investment, even though he's not necessarily performing at as high a level as Nani or some of those previous guys. Very similar story for Lucas Cavallini, a little bit further ahead of Buksa in terms of short-term production, but also a little bit older, so not maybe as much potential. And then our Great East Space bonus player for our mid-budget category is Carlos Fierro. He's really right between Buksa and Cavallini. As far as, he's still young and has a lot of room to grow, I think, but he's also already kind of performing at a pretty high level. So that could be a good option if you are in this category looking for someone with some upside, but also ready to contribute today. All right, before we transition into the low budget and wrap this video up, I want to thank everybody for watching. If I brought you value, please hit the like button. Please consider subscribing. Got a lot more good videos coming. Finishing off the MLS with goalkeepers next, and then some broader SoRare topics, as well as jumping into the J League, which I've already started doing some research on, and have found some really interesting things there. So without further ado, our low budget forwards with the best value is Teal Bunbury. So he also plays for New England Revolution, is an extremely consistent player. So I think great for hitting the threshold if you're trying to submit a threshold team, get that .02 ETH payout in the Global All-Stars Division 4. This is probably a guy that I'm going to look at and try and plug in there. Either him or someone from one of the Asia Leagues, which, like I mentioned, we'll be covering in future videos. In second place, we have Ola Kamara. Again, this tier, they're not going to help you, I don't think, win quite those same level of rewards. He's someone I think you could plug in the threshold, potentially in a lineup where you're trying to win something a little bit bigger. 20% of the time he's hitting, so definitely an option there. In third, Yu Kubo. He's pretty cheap, which I think helps, as you're trying to build out an initial roster. Had a consistency of 72% last year. One thing I will caution you with is Cincinnati was a new team, expansion team in the MLS last year. With that, they've had some roster turnover. They've added especially some attacking players. So it's something to be considerate of. He had a DNP of 18% last year. That may change. Maybe he comes off the bench instead of starting. Maybe he, isn't one of the first 11 that they choose. So something to consider with him, and maybe do a little bit more research if you think you want to go that way. And similar kind of regard with our Great East Space bonus player, Jurgen Locadia, also plays for Cincinnati. And looking at those numbers, nothing jumps off the page. Consistency 81, podium 7%. But if I'm buying someone on this slide right here, I think Teal's my first choice for my threshold. Jurgen's probably my second. And the reason I say that is he's a little bit younger and he has a lot of potential. He came to the MLS and had very, very high expectations and did not live up to those. I think part of that is, Cincinnati was an expansion team. They struggled a lot last year. They didn't score many goals and just never really looked like they got their footing. If they are able to turn the corner as a team, I think that helps Jurgen Locadia a lot, and maybe he lives up to that potential. So, that's a little bit more of a gamble probably. But if I'm, in this tier and I'm looking for someone with some long-term potential, I think that is a good option for you. So I hope I brought you some value today. This is the end of the video. Hit the like button, subscribe. Let me know what you want to see next. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I would love to engage with you guys and start building out this community. So thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.